2020 has been, let's just call it kind of a rough year so far, yeah? With everything going on, we're constantly flooded with pretty terrible news. So I wanted to shed some light on our horizon, at least in the world of video games. Certainly not the most important of things, but a hobby nevertheless that is helping many of us through these tough times. It hasn't been smooth sailing here either. Just like everything else, the video game industry has been impacted, with game launches being delayed left and right. However, there's still quite a few great looking games still scheduled to release this year, so today I'm going to talk about some of the new games that you can still look forward to playing in 2020. We're going to just go in order of release date. Starting things off, we've got Minecraft Dungeons, the top-down action-adventure game inspired by classic dungeon crawlers. It's like a simplified Diablo game set in the Minecraft universe. It's got what you expect from ARPGs. You'll be exploring zones and completing quests, collecting weapons and gear, leveling up your character, and using a variety of spells and abilities. It's going to support the traditional RPG roles like melee fighter, ranger, tank, healer, or mage, but there are no classes in the game. Instead, you are what you wear, as you pick artifacts, weapons, and armor to fit a preferred playstyle. You'll go through dungeons, fighting off hordes of enemies and bosses, solving puzzles, and bypassing obstacles. The game is also going to support 2 to 4 player co-op with difficulty scaling for larger groups, and Minecraft Dungeons is coming to PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch on May the 26th. Moving on to the month of June, we have got Ghost of Tsushima. This is an open world action adventure game set in 13th century feudal Japan. You play as a samurai warrior protecting his homeland from invading hordes. It's got deep close quarters combat, they're saying, and the gameplay that we've seen so far has looked pretty good. The main character engaging in these duel style one-on-one fights as well as brawls, taking on multiple opponents. We also see a bit of sneaking around and striking suddenly from the shadows, and they emphasize the fact that you'll be able to deviate from the traditional samurai path by taking on the role of a ghost. You know, I've really liked what I've seen from this game up until this point. It is worth noting that it seems to have a pretty big focus on the storytelling and less about non-stop action. It's probably going to be more of a guided experience than, say, a game like Dark Souls where you're just going from one fight to the next and then engaging in a boss. Either way, I think Ghost of Tsushima looks really good. This one is a PlayStation exclusive coming to the PS4 on June 26th. Now we move into July with the release of Grounded, which is basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the game. It's a first-person multiplayer survival adventure game where you play as a kid who's been shrunken down to the size of an ant. You'll have to explore, build, and try to survive the dangers of your own backyard. Now the game is set to have some light narrative to kind of guide players through the different systems, but it is largely an open sandbox survival game with a ton of freedom. You'll be gathering resources, crafting weapons and tools, and building forts. There's a progression through this research system that allows you to make better items, and you'll be fending off massive insects and bypassing environmental dangers like poisonous plants or sinkholes, stuff that if you were really tiny stuck in your backyard would be a bit of a pain. And this one is coming to the Xbox One and PC on July the 28th. Also scheduled for July is Skater XL. This is a skateboarding game. They're calling it an evolution for the genre with what they say is unparalleled board control and responsiveness while you skate in legendary real-world spots. Now it is currently in Steam Early Access and has some pretty phenomenal reviews so far. The game, from what I've seen in the gameplay, looks pretty grounded. Nothing really over the top with the kind of stuff you might have seen in like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which admittedly was the last skateboarding game that I played. You won't be like jumping over airplanes to collect floating letters and mixtapes. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I think it might make the game a little less exciting for people. So again, it's on early access and PC right now, and the official launch is coming for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, currently planned for July. Moving on to August, we've got the release of New World, a game that originally was actually planned to launch this May, but just recently got pushed back to August. This is the new MMO from Amazon Game Studios, and I use the phrase MMO lightly because really it's more of just an open world multiplayer action RPG. You'll get to play on servers with up to 1,000 other players, leveling and gearing up your character, with the major focus of the game being this territory control through these 50 vs 50 PvP battles. The game features player-run settlements that are owned by guilds, where players can gather to pick up quests, trade and craft, and even purchase their own homes. There's action combat that the developers have said is heavily inspired by Dark Souls, classless senseless character progression where your abilities will actually be coming from the weapons that you use and the experience that you have with it. Now, besides the PvP, there is also PvE in the game for people interested in that. As you fight through various NPC factions in the world, there will be big boss group events, invasions where you fend off waves of enemies attacking the player-owned keeps, and they've promised that there will be some other different types of PvE content, with the notable exception of the kind of dungeon or raid experience that you kind of expect from MMOs, which again is why I kind of hesitate to actually call this an MMO. This one, as of now, is scheduled to launch on the PC on August the 25th. Also in August, we have Windbound, a newly announced single-player action-adventure game. In this game, you find yourself shipwrecked on an island that you must explore, adapt, and navigate the land and perilous seas. Now, most of what I've seen describing this game so far has been kind of this like vague and flowery language, but from what I can tell, it's just an exploration adventure game. In the trailer that we saw, and there's only been one so far, it starts off with what looks to be the intro cinematic that shows your player being shipwrecked, and then from there we see a variety of different creatures, the player running around exploring, hunting, gathering, making fire, crafting a boat to travel between these various islands, fighting large creatures in an action combat system with some basic attacks and dodging, using different weapons. Pretty cool, pleasant surprise. I just heard about this very recently, and this one is set to be coming to the PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Switch on August 28th. Next up in September, we have Cyberpunk 2077, the open-world action-adventure RPG from CD Projekt Red, makers of the Witcher series. Since this game was announced, it's been pretty highly anticipated. There's been a lot of hype around this game. I think both due to the developer itself, but also the setting. People have kind of been craving some dystopian cyber future, besides the reality that we live in. The game is promising to deliver a rich RPG experience with tons of customization, open world exploration, and choices that impact your playthrough. There's a wide variety of weapons, combat options, and body modifications that are going to allow you to approach situations from multiple angles. Do you want to talk your way past the bad guys, go in guns blazing, or try sneaking around the back? There's going to be a lot of options to approach any scenario. They're also saying there's a deep, rich world with hundreds of NPCs and stories, dialogue trees, and choices, again, that will impact your story. Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to the PC, Xbox One, and PS4 on September 17th. All right, so those are all of the games with confirmed release dates. Next up is going to be everything that's still scheduled to release in 2020 around the holiday timeframe, which I believe means sometime in November or December. First up, we've got Outriders, a third-person looter shooter with RPG elements. This game features 4 unique classes with their own skills, playstyles, and passive abilities. The game's gonna have loads of different gear to collect with item levels, rarities, stats, and traits. There's a variety of locations, enemies, and full-on boss fights to engage in, a progression system via world tiers of ever-increasing difficulty. It's got drop-in, drop-out co-op, character customization, and a fully voiced story campaign. I've kind of seen some negativity around what we've seen of Outriders so far, people saying it looks kind of generic and uninspired. I like third-person looter shooters, and I most definitely am going to keep my eye on this one. And again, no firm release date, but it's scheduled for the PC, Xbox One, and PS4, as well as next-gen consoles sometime later in 2022. Moving on, we've got Magic Legends, an action RPG set in the Magic the Gathering universe, where we play as a spell-wielding planeswalker with 5 classes to choose from, each with their own unique standard, a special attack, and movement skill. Now, beyond those abilities, combat is going to revolve around casting spells and summoning creatures. So as you play the game, you're going to collect spells, and you will use those to craft these 12-card decks that you take into battle. The game has what they're calling a director AI that will scale the difficulty based on how well you play, so the better that you play, the harder things are going to get. They say we'll be traveling through various Magic the Gathering locations, such as the Island of Shiv, where you'll be fighting normal monsters, elites, bosses, doing quests, joining public events where you can encounter other players. There will be a story campaign, as well as what they're calling ordeals, which will be similar to the Diablo bounty system. And also one notable thing is that there's apparently no loot in this game. Like, you're not collecting armor and weapons, which is pretty standard for hack and slash ARPGs. Instead, you're just collecting spells and then shards to upgrade those spells. I would say there's actually quite a few questions and concerns about this game. So this is a free-to-play game being developed by Cryptic and published by Perfect World, and this is a developer-publisher publisher combination that has been known to put out some fairly pay-to-win experiences, one of the biggest examples being the MMO Neverwinter. So not a good sign that a free-to-play Magic the Gathering game is coming from these companies. I think there's a really great chance that we're going to be paying for booster packs, which will have random spells in them, and it's just going to be another loot box fiasco, which I think at this point, universally, we can say isn't a great way to monetize your games. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised with this. Magic Legends will be coming to the PC, Xbox One, and PS4 at some point in 2020. Now, I want to talk about WoW Shadowlands. This is kind of a personal ad for me. I know it's just an expansion, but I always have to play the latest World of Warcraft stuff. This will have everything you expect from an MMO expansion. There will be brand new locations as we explore through the Shadowlands. There'll be new dungeons and raids, new enemies to fight, new gear and items to collect. Some of the unique features in Shadowlands include covenants, which will be these factions with unique rewards, and I think you're also going to get unique class abilities through these as well. There's the Tower of the Damned, which is this endlessly replayable, ever-changing dungeon, which sounds pretty cool to me. And there's also going to be a level cap squash. The new level cap is actually going to be lowered back to level 60. There's a brand new introductory player experience from levels 1 to 10, and then from levels 10 to 50, players are going to get to pick where and how they level up, and then Shadowlands itself will be the experience from levels 50 to 60. Since this game was first launched, I've played every single expansion, and no doubt I will be checking out this one as well, and of course, this will be coming to the PC via Battle.net. Moving on, we have got Dying Light 2, an open-world survival horror action game. The original Dying Light had some pretty amazing parkour, world traversal, and melee combat. I think it's a bit of an underrated game, frankly. Now, this one will be taking place 15 years after the original, and the choices that you make are set to have a pretty big impact on the world. Namely, there's multiple factions in this game, and depending on which one you choose, deliver a completely different experience. So much so that you will be completely locked off to certain areas of the map if you pick one faction over the other, which is nice because I think will lend to some replayability. The game is also promising to deliver the same great movement and combat of the original, along with some new terrifying threats at night, and Dying Light 2 will be coming to the PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Next up, we have got Torchlight 3. This was formerly known as Torchlight Frontiers, and it's a traditional hack and slash ARPG where you pick a class, kill monsters, and collect epic loot. It's going to have a familiar linear structure of leveling up a character and progressing through these different zones, just like the first two games. It's got that traditional vertical gear progression. Some of the unique things include player forts that you can be built up and customized, social hubs where you can hang out and group up with other players. They've got some new classes that weren't in the traditional Torchlight games, and this will be coming exclusively to PC to start in holiday 2020. Next up, Gods and Monsters, a game from the creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is an adventure game about a forgotten hero on a quest to save Greek gods. You'll be exploring a fantasy world filled with trials and dungeons while fighting off mythological creatures. It's an open world game that is said to mix traversal, platforming, combat, and puzzle solving, and it says to have fast-paced combat with a resource management system. They're calling this a full-on RPG with character customization, stats, and skills. There's also gear that will give you special abilities. Now, this game was originally planned to release in February, but then was delayed until later in 2020, and it will be coming to PC as well as current and next generation consoles. Moving on, we have Halo Infinite, which is the next Halo game, continuing the story of Halo 5 Guardians, and is going to be set to take the franchise in an unexpected new direction, and that's pretty much all we know so far. There's a lot of questions about this game still. Some people are anticipating it's going to be kind of an open world multiplayer Halo game. There's rumors that it could be kind of pushing in the direction of something like Destiny, where there's loot and gear with different rarities and stuff like that. We just don't know a lot. Really, all we've seen so far is a story trailer. There's been no gameplay and really no further info, and I think one of the biggest reasons here is that this is going to be launching with the next generation Xbox, which is still a big question mark. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with next gen consoles this year. I'm not surprised that they've been holding off on giving much information about Halo Infinite. Same goes with our next game, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This is the next entry in the critically acclaimed Hellblade franchise. It's a dark fantasy action adventure game that continues the tale of the main character Senua, which I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing wrong. Apologies. The trailer footage that we saw for this looked gorgeous. A apparently it was captured entirely in engine. This game is beautiful, and I'm actually really disappointed that I never got a chance or haven't gotten around to playing the first Hellblade, but I want to in preparation of this game. But this is again a big question mark because it was scheduled to come out holiday 2020 to the next Xbox and PC, but is that gonna happen? Again, it's really crazy. The final game on today's list is gonna actually be Godfall. I'm really excited for this one. It's a third-person fantasy looter slasher is what they're calling it. It's not a looter shooter because it's more focused on melee combat. They're saying it's gonna have high impact combat, being in third person and focused entirely on melee action. They're saying a looter slasher where you'll be chasing legendary weapons and armor, and it's also a co-op game where you can play in groups of up to 3 players. This one coming to the PS5 and PC holiday 2020. Some big question marks for a few of these games, all revolving around the next generation consoles. We're not sure. There's been so many disruptions into the launch of things, and hardware especially is affected, with production being affected. We'll have to wait and see really how the rest of the year pans out. Besides all of these games, there's plenty of other great recent titles to play. Over the past few weeks, I've been spending a ton of time with Warzone, that brand new Call of Duty Battle Royale. I was actually pretty obsessed with this game for several weeks, and I'm still enjoying it, but have recently been distracted by a few other things, including I went back to the World of Warcraft. They have this event going on right now where you get 100% bonus experience, so it was a good excuse to level up some characters that haven't hit max level yet. And then of course recently we saw the release of Valorant, which I dove into and have been really enjoying, although oh boy is it sweaty. I'm having a fun time with Valorant. It's just so hyper competitive. There's like no chill while playing that game, so I'm basically bouncing between playing some rounds of Valorant, being super intense, and then just chilling out and leveling up some characters in WoW. Frankly, I've been playing a lot of games period recently. Like, I've been really enjoying this stuff, so much so that I've kind of been neglecting my work as a result. It probably makes sense to start streaming, maybe. Would you guys watch if I were to stream? I'd consider doing it again, but honestly, part of me thinks though it's kind of nice to just sit here in my own filth and not have to get dressed up for the internet, just talk while I'm playing games. It's nice to just chill here and enjoy and focus on my games. So yeah, those are a few of the more interesting looking games that are still planned to release in 2020. Of course, those plans can and most likely in some cases will be changing, but hopefully most of these games stay on track and we get to play them later this year. Of course, there's more important things going on in the world right now than video game releases. With that in mind, take care of yourselves, be kind to others, and stay safe out there, okay? All right, thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, I'll see you later.